and welcome friends. In this particular module, we wish to discuss about surveying in view of engineering projects. It is needless to say, every project is very important and is an indicator of the development of the nation. As well, it is also helpful in every walk of everybody's life. We'll discuss more about the significance associated with the projects in the coming discussion. So, in this particular presentation, we wish to know about what do we mean by detailed surveys, horizontal control, vertical control, methods for the location. And in order to understand these particular terms, we'll briefly touch the examples for bridges, dams, and tunnels. So as we learn this particular content, you will be able to introduce need of detailed survey for major engineering projects. You'll be also able to explain basic concept of establishment of horizontal and vertical control to conduct the project survey. So let's try to understand what is meaning of the project survey. As I initially mentioned, the infrastructure is indicator of the development of a particular nation. It can also be taken as the particular progress being made in social, technical, as well as even political aspects. So, in order to have this kind of infrastructure, we can just consider a few examples in form of road, bridges, tunnels, dams, railways, airports, harbors, and lot many. In view of execution of these particular projects, there is a need to have lot many information, and hence this particular project survey can be broadly considered to be divided into the various stages such as the project conceptualization followed by reconnaissance, preliminary, and location survey. In addition, there could be surveys meant for the execution as well as even the various checks. Even the surveys could be required in order to maintain the check on the operation and maintenance of a particular project. So, these particular stages would be discussed in our, say, subsequent presentation. However, in order to understand the brief, um, say, steps or the kind of overall idea that we keep for the project surveys, we can understand some of the important steps such as collection of the existing maps and data. So for a particular place, some information could have been collected and that information would be available in the form of some maps as well as some databases. So that information needs to be collected. As the need of a particular project is studied during the office stage of a particular surveying work, the gaps could be identified, and in order to catch that omitted data, some preliminary as well as reconnaissance survey could be taken into the hand. Based on the collected data, as well as even the reconnaissance survey, and the information collected through these particular preliminary surveys, one can prepare some small scale maps. And this will be very much useful in order to define the various networks in the form of triangulation networks or traversing networks. In turn, these particular networks will be very much essential in order to establish the various controls on the work as well as in order to apply the check in order to define a particular station, in order to locate a particular station. So there would be a lot many examples as far as these particular networks are concerned. Even these particular small scale maps would be of much importance in order to select a particular stations. Now, as you know, the stations are a particular signifying points. These are major nodal points which are establishing the control on the particular engineering project. Their selection is very important task, as well as a particular engineering project will be having some alignment. It could be having some specific dispositions. It would be having certain, say, uh, exact footprint, and hence there is a need to define the angles as well as directions of the alignments as well as the overall footprint of a particular project. So why this particular project survey? Why there is a need to have that particular project survey? In single sentence, we can say this particular project survey is essential to meet all infrastructure surveying needs, right from the stage of the conceptualization till its execution, and as I tried to mention on the earlier slide, even during the operation and maintenance stages. Just to touch some background associated with this project survey, these are very crucial in order to ensure optimal usage of the resources. These project surveys are very much voluminous. Say, for example, if we consider the construction of the airport, say, for example, if we consider the construction of the harbor, docks and harbor, if we consider the construction of viaducts, if we consider certain multi-level bridges, maybe catering the need to convey various communication links. So, in order to have these realized, one will be involving lot many machine, material, money, moments, and such basic resources. And these projects would be taking a considerable time during its, say, execution stages. So there is a quite essential, or there is a very much importance related with the establishment of optimal usage of particular resources. Even if we consider the various stages of such a voluminous projects, there is a need to have existing conditions recorded. So that could be before execution of the project, during execution of the project, as well as during the actual usage of the development of the infrastructure. It is also essential to recognize the latest technology for the complex design as well as execution of the methodologies. So, this particular aqueduct, which is built by Luigi Vannivelli, is a kind of the old monument, whereas the lower one, what you see, is quite a modern structure. So, if we consider the need for the maintenance of these, need for the execution of such crucial structures, one has to go for the latest technologies in order to ensure the optimal usage of the resources. Hence, these particular project surveys will be very much important in order to recognize the latest technology to meet with the complex designs as well as even the execution methodologies. Each of such structures will be having lot many components which are assembled together in some strategic engineered manner. To locate their position is a crucial task, so that locations could be existing on the surface of the ground, or that could be lying even below the ground, and also even, say, below the water bodies. Hence, to locate that positions in the precise manner could be one of the requirements as far as these particular projects are concerned. As well, one must ensure the accurate installation and the erection of that particular structural components in specific manner. In order to have that particular installation as well as the erection, there could be lot many agencies which would be working together. Hence, the agencies needs to be mobilized as well as their efforts should be coordinated in order to meet with the basic aim of that particular project. Hence, it could be treated as one of the essential requirements as far as these particular project surveys are concerned. So let's try to understand what are the meanings associated with the some of the terms that we discussed. So as the project is conceptualized, as the reconnaissance related with that project is done, then one would be going for these stages such as say preliminary surveys. So structures could be having small footprint. It could be having, say, for example, if we consider rail-like structure, if we consider certain highway-like structure, it could be having considerable length as compared to its width. For such projects, there could be need of certain aerial surveys. So, normally, the topographical survey is essential to indicate the dominant features showing the exact location of that particular features. As the information related with the existing topography is collected, one has to go for design. So in view of a design, there are some specific requirements. Say for example, during the preliminary works, some location could have been decided. So in order to have that particular location actually realized, some information could be required, and that information will be collected by having the surveys in view of designs. As this is very crucial stage and it is to be materialized in execution stage, there is a need to have highest accuracy. Now, as one is through with the designs, there is a need to have some location surveys. So, say for example, if we consider some such structures, so there is a specific requirement in order to have that particular loops, in order to have that particular intersections, in order to have the initial point, in order to have that particular, say, intersection, in order to have that particular various connectors. So all that needs to be defined in very specific manner, and for that there is a need to have some networks defined in order to locate that, and hence one may go for such triangulation as well as say traversing techniques. Further, these particular networks will be very much helpful all the way. That is, it would be helpful during the execution stages. It will be helpful in the stage of the operation in order to apply the various checks, and hence the permanent nature stations, the requisite monuments need to be constructed in order to have that control duly established. Also, these locations will be attracting lot many computations in view of exact location as well as to have that particular location preserved. Subsequently, there is a need to have the location survey. So, it is helpful to establish the computed locations on the ground or on the exact location exactly So as I mentioned earlier, it could have been related with the hydrography. So underwater, it could have been required if one is dealing with certain mining. So some such structures could have been required to place below the ground if one is dealing with certain tunnel surveys. While establishing that particular, say, entry points, shafts, adits, etc., there is a need to have that particular exact locations. Now, having that particular network of the computed locations based on their locations, some secondary locations can also be fixed. So the exact meaning associated with these particular things would be more clear as we discuss about some selected infrastructure projects. So what do we mean by horizontal control? It is an essential step in project surveys for preliminary surveys involving certain triangulation or precise traversing. So this triangulation would be involving breast quadrilaterals with baseline as well as check base. Already we have discussed about the triangulation networks, trilateration networks. So the concept of this particular triangulation is clear to you. Here the reference of the stations is required for all the further stages. Hence, the permanent monuments are required to fix the stations. Let's consider this particular example of, say, bridge. So in order to establish the overall control, certain breast quadrilateral in the form of ABCD is considered. Here this AB forms the base and this BC forms the check base. In order to have these particular intermediate piers as well as end piers fixed, these stations will be nearer to that requisite pier. Now, to establish this particular station to meet the specific requirement of the project will depend on the component that is to be established. Say, for example, as you see, for this particular bridges, stations are established near to the pier locations. Whereas, if we consider about, say, tunnels, the stations need to be established near to the shafts. Vertical control is in view of maintaining various levels. Could be required at the base, could be required at the foundation, could be required at decks, soffits. So to say, the various stages as we go in the altitudes as far as that particular project is concerned. So, in the vertical control, these project surveys involve the establishment of the benchmarks near the structure. So, usually, such major projects deal with GTS benchmark. So, this significance of this GTS benchmark is already known to you. As we are dealing with this particular first order kind of the triangulation, it is quite essential to maintain the high accuracy, and these exact locations need to be highlighted as it is establishing the references at all the phases of the work. So with the continuation of the example of that, say, bridge survey, here as you see, overall control is established by that network ABCDA, and over that particular area benchmarks are established as BM1, BM2, BM3, BM4 so that their reference would be taken at all the execution stages, and their location should be such that they won't be disturbed during the execution stages, as well as one would be able to take the reference of that particular benchmark as and when required. There are certain methods for locations. So it is essential to define the basic locations related with that particular projects. So that would be some significant stations which will be helping us to establish the reference for the further stages of the work. This work is highly precise nature. It should be set in such a manner that their positions will not be disturbed. It should provide reference for all subsequent locations. So, say for example, if we consider bridges, locations of the piers, abutments from each of the ends along the center line. If we consider the location stations in view of the tunnels, they would be near the shafts, would be signifying the alignment of the tunnel. It would be giving the exact direction of that particular center line. For that too, we have to give some small scale maps, some handy maps which would be used by all the concerned agencies during the various stages of the work with to take the reference of the main locations, benchmarks, as well as to know the angles and directions in order to define a particular location of the station. Just to get acquainted with the various things that we discussed in our earlier slides, say, let's consider this particular bridge survey. So, as a part of the project survey, basic topographic survey is conducted well in advance. The maps are prepared to the scale of 1 is to 500 to 1000. Usually, the contour interval is chosen to be 1 to 2 meters. Breast quadrilaterals are always preferred in order to establish the good control on the work, as well as GTS benchmarks are used in order to establish the sound vertical control. Hydrographic surveys are proposed, conducted in order to depict the bed profile. Soundings are taken, say, at 3 to 8 meters. Some sound control networks in the form of triangulation, traversing, trilaterations are resorted in order to establish the good control. These networks will be helpful in order to locate some offshore pier, center line, and some governing features like abutment face and such things. Also, as we are dealing with the water body, it is essential to define the position of the copper dams, as well leveling operations for the setting exact levels at each of the work stages in view of vertical control. In a similar manner, we can consider the case of the dam survey. So very similar to the bridges, basic topography survey is taken. This particular location and height of the dam are indicated on the maps with scale of 1 is to 10,000 to 1 is to 25,000. Contour interval is adopted to be 1 to 2 meters. Breast quadrilaterals are used in order to establish the control. Vertical control is facilitated through well-knit network of the benchmarks. Also, the hydrographic survey, the way we discussed about the bridges, are also essential for the dams. For the tunnels, requirement could be bit different in view of locating and deciding height of the portals. So for the tunnels, these portals are nothing but the starting and ending point. The alignments are marked on the soffit as well as even on the floor depending on the site requirements. The control points are established on the soffit. The cross sections need to be checked by the templates. The scales followed for the preparation of the maps is 1 is to 1000 to 1 is to 2000. Contour interval chosen for the surveys are 1 to 2 meters. Here, the execution needs the sound vertical control, as well as here the construction survey will be helpful in order to depict the position of the shaft as well as add it. Also, there is a need to establish a check on the verticality of the shaft, elevation of the floors, as well as alignment of the tunnels. So, as we discuss this individual survey for in detail, it will be more, say, helpful to understand the exactness of the terms that we are using in this introductory presentation. So, thanks for your attention, friends. As we move ahead, we'll discuss the detailed surveying for major infrastructure projects. So, by till then, I wish you very happy learning. Thank you.